Go live and find out.
There we go. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel. Tonight's session, Imaging Products of the Year 2015. Yeah, I see Sky and Telescope has theirs. Well, they're 2016, but I thought, you know what? I want to have one of these. So here we go. First of all, before we jump into that, the image of the week is John Rista's Vandenberg 27. And this is a beautiful image, and I believe that John is still in the room. And John, if you would be so kind as to share a little bit about your image here, as I share it on my screen.
Sure, I can do that. This was an interesting image for me. I started out getting about 4 hours a day, which is about half what I total integrated in the end. And the first round of processing was just kind of dismal, and it was a little depressing for all the time I put into it, and like the wind and dust that I'd endured, that I kind of shelved it for a while. I went back a couple nights later and got some more data, almost double the data, but I didn't actually process it until a couple weeks ago. And when I finally did process it completely, the results were better, the noise was better, and it turned out to be a pretty decent image. But I was pretty surprised at the response to the image when I started sharing it around, and people really reacted to it, and that really surprised me. And it turned it from an image that I thought was kind of mediocre into an image that was kind of a milestone for me. This image also taught me a few things about my camera, about the imaging I've been doing, particularly about how much dark current was affecting my images, and it's really kind of redoubled my efforts to get a CCD camera to get around the dark current problem that I currently have. I mean, even during October, dark current noise was really high in this image, and there was a lot of color noise. It took a lot of processing to kind of work out of the image. But yeah, in the end, it turned out to be a pretty good image after that first kind of depressing attempt at processing it. So I'm quite honored to have it selected as the image of the week.
Thanks, John. Thanks for contributing. Now, this is a great image. I know you said you thought this was one of your best images, and I never want to say, oh yeah, this is your best image, because I don't want to denigrate any of the others, but this is a really nice image.
Thank you.
Very 3D looking, which is, I guess, what we're all looking for these days.
Yeah, tough to achieve that.
Yep. And, okay, sorry, just reading a comment. I do want to remind you guys out there, type your questions as you go. I'm going to make sure the Q&A app is enabled. I'm sorry, my screen's doing something funny. And what I am going to do is jump right into the presentation. Sorry, bear with me. I'm trying to get this screen. And please stop me if you don't see my screen, my PowerPoint presentation here. First thing I'm going to say is Best Imaging Products of 2015. I put a post on Cloudy Nights and I asked, what do you guys think? And a bunch of people mentioned a bunch of products. And I'll be honest, I consider myself a gearhead. That's what Alex always says. But a few of them I hadn't really paid much attention to. I'm going to include them, but I might reach out and say, hey, so what's this all about? So I'm moving on. The Best Imaging Products of 2015. 2015, in my opinion, was the year of the mount. We saw a lot of nice mounts come out. Performance is just getting better and better. The first being the Sirius and the Atlas Pro, new releases by Orion. And I believe that both of them work, or I shouldn't say that. The Atlas works in equatorial or alt-azimuth mode, but one of the key features of this is the dual scope capability. So you can remove your counterweights down there and replace it with either a guider scope or a separate wide field scope. And that's becoming more and more common on these mounts, and it's actually becoming an interesting feature if you're looking to do dual scope imaging. And of course, you guys all know the performance of the Orion, and We usually suggest it for beginners not because it's the cheapest out there, but because it works and it's got good performance, so you're probably not going to have as many issues as if you started with a lesser mount. Moving on to the next one, and this is one of those places where I said, okay, I'm going to include it, but I'm not quite sure about something. So I'm going to reach out and ask you guys. Skywatcher came out with the new mounts, and I don't know if you see it down there in the bottom right. They also came out with the Quattro Newtonian that I didn't, for some reason, put some type in here, but that's an interesting imaging newt that they came out with. But Skywatcher came out with, I believe, the Hd25 Pro. I couldn't find a lot of stuff on their website, and I'm not quite sure why I'm not finding what I thought it was, but it's basically the same build as, or same manufacturer as the Orion, but there's some cost savings involved. Now, someone here help me out. I thought this used to be the European version or something. Help me out. What exactly is Skywatcher to Orion? What's the association? Anyone out there?
Don't they all have the same parent company?
Same parent company. I guess so. I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone was saying that maybe they're the same thing, but the HEQ is a little bit less, and I'm always a little curious saying the same thing. But either way, you know, it's a good mount with a good reputation. Maybe it's so brand new that I wasn't able to find much about it online. And moving on to the next, Avalon. Avalon out of Italy, I believe, came up with a couple new mounts. The first being the M0, and that's riding on their T-Pod, which is their new tripod. And this is a nice package. You can see how compact it looks, and it actually is fairly compact. The capacity of capacity of 17.6 pounds with a single scope, 28.6 pounds dual scope. So you can run it like a dual scope. I believe that it works really well with SCTs. Works in equatorial or alt-azimuth mode. Single arm, so it's got that unique look to it. And the reason being, no meridian flips. And I used to have a fork mount, so let me tell you, that's very convenient. Like I said earlier, dual scope capability. And in addition to the M0, just recently they introduced the M Tree, which has that same single arm style, but has a much higher capacity, 70 and 83 pounds, single and dual scope mode. I am almost certain that we're going to have a review of the Avalon mount on the Astro Imaging channel before too long.
Hey, Adam, I can chime in a little bit on both of those.
Go right ahead.
Right now, real quick. The M0, the one thing that you didn't mention on there that is unbelievable about that is how light that mount is. I've been imaging for a long time with my Orion Atlas and my Orion Sirius, and the Sirius is a lightweight mount, a very lightweight mount, but the M0 is way, way more portable. The whole thing weighs maybe 16 pounds. When I have all of my gear on there, my telescope and my camera and everything, I'm still carrying less than about 30 pounds, so I can pick the whole thing up by that handle you see and just carry it from in my basement or in my office right outside. Nothing to it. It's extremely quiet, very smooth. I'm working right now on working out some counterbalance issues that I'm having personally because I've a setup that is having trouble coming to balance right now. But the tracking on it was just perfect. I got a chance to work on it for a week out at the Okie Star party, and just completely flatlined. And that was carrying the maximum capacity weight too. So it's really great. Their software is starting to make some really good strides now too. They're working diligently on updating that to a lot of requests from the users, and both Ed from Deep Space Products and Luciano from Avalon are both very responsive and want to make you happy. So it's just very, very sleek mount and very lightweight and compact. Also, it can break down so that you can fly with it. I was able to take it on my flight out to Oklahoma. So, and that was carry-on, not even checked-in luggage.
That's a great
question.
Go ahead.
The capacity on that, is that an imaging capacity or is that a visual?
That is an imaging capacity.
Okay.
And I know several people who go way above that. Salvopa, who you might recognize on Astrobin, carries an AT8 RC on top, and I can't remember what he has on bottom. It might be a talk that he has on bottom. So he's pushing it. I think he's more up like around 35 pounds or 40 pounds on there. So it's a conservative estimate from what I've seen.
Thanks.
Is there a built-in polar alignment routine to that?
There is not currently. So that's another thing that we've been working together on really improving. There's two ways to go about it. One, there's a polar scope that attaches to, you can see where the counterweights are down on the bottom there. There's a polar scope that attaches there. So you basically flip the mount around and you can put the polar scope on there, or you can not have your telescope on and you can put it on the top. They suggest using Hd25 drift alignment. Luciano is currently working on implementing a 3-star, sort of like the all-star polar alignment. He is working on implementing that. I think that software is supposed to be coming out sometime in the next couple of months. And then I guess additionally, what the route that I'm going is I just picked up one of the products that you're going to talk about soon, which is the Pole Master, which I think is just going to be a perfect fit for that. The one issue I have with trying to polar align with this is taking the polar scope on and off. So Hd25 drift alignment doesn't work great if you don't have enough of the sky to see. And I don't like taking the scope on and off because the mount is so lightweight, it can actually move a little bit if you're not careful. So I like keeping everything on there so that it's rock solid and not moving anywhere.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. Moving on.
What you mentioned is that those are fully belt driven.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the one other thing about M-Tray is that Sarah Wager is test driving that. So if you look her up on Facebook or just Google her, she is documenting her test drive of the M-Tray. I think it's the only one out there right now, but she's posted her setup already in her observatory there. If you want more information on that.
And I think she already got an APOD with it. I think.
Maybe. I know with the ODK, I know she did. I don't know if she had it on the M-Tray or not.
Okay, maybe not, yeah. All right. And then it started us off. Actually, it started before this year, but honestly, if I limited this to only products that were introduced and used in 2015, I wouldn't have many products. So, Software Bisque's Mighty Mount with the Sky X. It's 50-pound capacity. So basically, if you are an SCT guy, if you are using anything up to what I'll consider a normal scope, really great package. Low-priced leader for premium mount with premium performance and a powerful software package. So the Sky X really can do just about anything. It has a built-in planetarium, but in addition to that, I mean, so many things. You could track sunspots. You can any sort of more complex task that would track comets. More complex tasks than just tracking and pointing at the sky. As well, unguided imaging with the ProTrack, and the beginning of this year, it didn't seem like many people were doing unguided imaging, and now towards the end of the year, it's becoming more and more popular and more reliable. Homing sensors. So if you choose to operate remotely with your portable mount, and some of us do operate remotely with our portable mount, those homing sensors are really handy. I'll tell you right now, it's bitter cold out. It's 39 degrees. I guess I'm getting a little bit of weak with this weather. So it's 39 degrees outside, and I don't want to go outside to look at my mount when I'm imaging. So yeah, that makes it really nice when you're automated. As well, the VersaPlate, and I think the VersaPlate is one of the killer features. USB and power coming right from below the dovetail. Limits your wires, really makes it a nice clean package. So many of us have issues that are caused by wires. So if you eliminate one factor, you really eliminate a future issue. And to hear any more about this, you're going to have to go and check out our session that we had on the Mighty Mount Astrophysics image. The software bisque imaging routine by Richard Wright. Wow, that was a flub. Maybe I was thinking in the future, because very recently Astrophysics introduced their CP4 control box. And the CP4 is basically just the brains of the mount that isn't the hand control. But if you used an astrophysics mount, you know a few things. You have you have a serial port that you have to change to a USB to get it to work with your laptop. Well, they integrated the USB, but they also gave you an option here. They gave you Ethernet as an option, and if that's not enough, they gave you Wi-Fi as an option as well. They also strengthened up the power connector. And to be announced, there might be some cool new features coming out that take advantage of the processing power in here. It might take a new hand control, but we will see. 2016, the year of the CCD, or maybe the CMOS. This is what I'm hoping. This is what I'm hoping to be saying at the end of this year. Because we've seen from ON Semi, and I think this happened before this past year, but and I haven't seen many of these out there, so I'm a little fearful. Maybe it's the price tag, but at least they're paying attention. ON Semi introduced the CAF 50100, and right now FLI, and I believe they did it with FLI specifically. FLI is offering a package with that camera. Basically, it's 32% more area than the 16803, which itself is a huge camera. 8176 by 6132 with 6 micron pixels. Total resolution 50.1 megapixels. That's a lot. If you guys have seen the promos on this sensor, it's massive. It's expensive. It's pretty cool that they came out with it, and I hope they sell a bunch of them because I want to see how it performs. But maybe more relevant in our case, the CAF 16200, FLI and QHY are going to be doing this one. It's an APS-H format. That's 27 by 21. That's a nice sized chip. That's bigger than the CAF 8300. It has specs similar to the 8300, maybe a little bit better. 4540 by 3630 with 6 micron pixels. So the pixels are a little bit bigger than the 8300. Very interesting camera. Total resolution of 16 megapixels. This is one that we're all looking forward to seeing. And but remember, these are just the sensors. We need the cameras. And here you go. QHY put that sensor into a pretty nice looking camera. It has Wi-Fi, so you can you don't have to worry about your USB. It also has integrated USB for an integrated filter. I put USB there twice. Why did I put USB there twice? I don't know. It has an integrated filter wheel, but you can also, I believe, plug your other components into this camera and operate it over the USB. For example, your focuser, your mount, your off-axis guider. Well, maybe you wouldn't use your mount, but you basically are using it for cable clutter reduction. And
I'm curious if it would work with the mount, because I do have a USB cable coming off of that I plug into a hub. If this thing has a hub in it, is that what they're saying, that it's got a built-in hub?
I think that's what they're saying, is that it has a built-in hub. I think it's only one cable, though.
Oh.
And the reason I said probably not with the mount is because if you've run, well, I run my cables through my mount. So if I was running my mount to this camera, then I would have to run an additional cable to the mount. And I don't know. I'd rather an extra cable outside the mount than an extra cable inside the mount. Just the way I'm thinking about it. And I'll tell you, and I hope that the people in the room's heads aren't cutting off this one on the bottom here, because I hadn't heard about this until I started looking into it, or until I started looking into what to come up with for this session. The Minicam 5F is basically a starter mono CMOS imager, 1/3 of an inch, 1280 by 960, so a small sensor. Not many pixels, and they're kind of small at 3.75 micron. But this is a mono CMOS imager with a filter wheel, and you can get narrowband filters for it. This is a really interesting camera. This is one of those cameras that I can't wait to see some examples of it in the forums, because I'd like to recommend this to some people. I was just speaking to someone the other day who's on a DSLR budget but wants to do narrowband. And I don't think he wants necessarily an expansive field. I think he wants just nice images. And with this camera, it's really interesting. You can do some interesting stuff. And FLI, they've got it because they came out with the 16200 sensor. They're putting it in their microline body. And of course, the 5100, I looked this up, and I think they're putting this in the microline body, and I'm not sure if they're putting in any of the other bodies. So I had looked, and I didn't see any of them. But I may be wrong on that, so I'll correct something. I'll put a note in if I was wrong about that. But yeah, that 5100, that's a massive sensor. QSI, beginning of the year, or maybe a little bit before the beginning of the year, they came out with this, the 6120. I thought I had the sensor designation in there, but I don't. But it is the 6120 sensor, I believe. No, maybe not. That doesn't sound like a Sony number. But either way, 4250 by 2838, 12 megapixels, 3.1 micron pixels. Those are some small pixels. But look at that, 77 PQE. They put this sensor into the QSI package, which I think the integrated filter wheel and off-axis guider is really one of the key solid components of this. And then look at the specs there. Dark current, very low, 0.002 electrons per second at -10. Read noise, less than 4 electrons RMS. And dynamic range, 68 decibels. They actually did something to this camera, I believe, that brought the full well from, was it 21K to 27K or something like that. So they are really doing a good job with this sensor.
Yeah, I can talk to this one if you want, Adam.
Go right ahead, David.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm one of the earlier adopters of this camera. I think I'm the third person to get one. And yeah, originally the dynamic range was kind of low, and I sent it back. They actually requested, you know, hey, can you send it in? So I sent it back to them, and they definitely improved the dynamic range quite a bit. You know, it's in the same line of sensors as the 660 or the 694 ICX 694 Sony sensor, and the 814, which is what the 690 is based off of. The read noise is very low, dark current very low, just as spec. In fact, the read noise is lower than spec. Mine is just under 3 electrons after the modification. It was actually a little lower before with a lower gain, but the camera has been fantastic. It's a really nice chip in there, and a good package.
Thank you, David. Does yours have that liquid heat? I can't read what that says. Does your camera have that thing on the back of it there?
No, I got mine as an air-cooled only. It's like minus 45 degrees below ambient with just air-cooled.
Okay.
Right, so it's pretty darn good. Even in, you know, Central Texas where I'm at, you know, I can still get down to minus 15, minus 20 in the summers.
Yeah, and those Sony sensors barely heat it to begin with, so.
Right. You know, if you're taking those hour and a half long exposures, then, you know, that's more important. But
yep. Awesome. Thank you, David.
That sensor is an i6-834, which is a 12 megapixel sensor. I think they label their cameras by megapixel size, so 6120 stands for 12 megapixels, 690 is 9 megapixels.
Aha. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And for a DSLR, hopefully next year I'll be able to do this with Canon. We'll go back and forth, Canon, Nikon. They'll be fighting for the best Astro cams. But Nikon, they came back at Canon with the D810A. And whereas Canon did it with their 60D, an APS-C sensor, Nikon did it with a full-frame sensor. And they did it with a Sony sensor. So they're really bringing it. They put one of the best sensors in a really high-end body. The only disadvantage I'm going to say is the price tag, but you can look at some of the shots that some people have taken with this. Go on Astrobin and check them out because wow, they're really coming out with some nice stuff. And as always with DSLRs, you've got your lenses available to you, and you know, there's some pretty nice Nikon lenses out there that are a lot cheaper than the Canon counterparts. So even if you're spending for the body, sometimes you can save on the lens. And I'm not going to say any more about that because you'll see. So a bunch of people also, this is another one of those where a bunch of people said, oh, you have to put these up there, you have to put these up there. And the ZWO, and that's what I'm going to call it, the ZWO ASI cameras. Now, I'm not even sure if these were the ZWOs they were talking about, but these caught my eye because these are cooled CMOS cameras. Well, what do you need a planetary camera cooled for? Well, maybe they're not planetary cameras. Maybe they're good enough for DSOs. First of all, look at what Jason, who posts 13 on Cloudy Nights, shot. This was his first light, I believe, with this camera, and wow, that's pretty awesome. And I guess for some reason they never made it. They never I never really paid attention to them. And then I checked out some of the specs, and the sensors range from 1/3 of an inch up to 1 inch. Well, whoa, that's a nice size sensor, a 1-inch sensor. But even the 1/3-inch sensor has some pretty nice specs. If you notice the read noise, and I don't know if you guys can see the specs here, and I'm not even going to read them out to you because there's 4 different cameras in them. But the specs look pretty good to me. If CCDs are dying, if we're not going to be using CCDs anymore because nobody's going to be making them, then we're going to be looking at cameras like this, and we're going to be looking at sensors like this, maybe a little bit bigger, but this may be the start of something. You've seen this one, and then the last Minicam 5F, so we will see. Okay, the William Optics Star 71. You guys know I'm a fan of this because I own one. 71mm f. Oh, that's wrong. It's not f4.5. It's f4.9. I'm lying. F4.9 Apo, but that's still pretty darn fast. Very large field, focal length of 350, 45mm imaging circle, 2.5-inch focuser, and I didn't type it here, but here's the reason I bought this scope. Because I didn't need a field flattener, and that meant that it worked with the back focus of my CCD camera. The focuser itself also worked with my CCD camera. So all of a sudden, out of the box, I have a scope that I could use with my CCD. Due to the back focus, actually I shouldn't say that. That's not uncommon. That I could use with my CCD camera and filter wheel with my off-axis guider installed, because I don't want to have to take my off-axis guider off and on and off and on to switch scopes. So all I do is I take it off the edge and I put it onto the William Optics, and I'm good to go. That's a very convenient thing, and this scope I think is still under $1,000. It's just an awesome package. And there's a few of us who are using this in the group here, so I'm not the only one. Check out some of the images online. There's some great ones, including Richard Flynn's massive growing mosaic, which is something I wish I was doing right now, except I haven't seen clear skies in forever. Astronomics, Truss Newtonian. I swear I was dreaming about this before it was introduced. 10-inch Truss Newtonian for $17.95, 12-inch for $21.95. F4. That is speed and aperture. I believe that the 10-inch is, well, let's do the math here. What is the 10-inch? 1,000 millimeters focal length, and the 12 inches a little bit more, or do I have that wrong? Either way, once you hit, I'm not going to say once you hit the limits of your seeing, but once you're up against your seeing, why not take it in speed? Why not just take your aperture in speed? And that's really the benefit of these things. One of the other hopes, or one of my hopes, is that the truss will be built well enough that it'll be able to handle the Keller corrector, which can bring it down to f2.8. If it can do that, then, well, I'm going to want one even more. But really impressive scope. Another interesting item, astrophysics. Well, of course, they introduced their AP130 GTX, which was a slight tweak on their on their previous 130. But some people were more excited about this. It's a quad TCC telecompressor. I don't even know, TCC. I'll have to get back to you on that one. But the astrophysics quad TCC. So basically, it's a reducer for your GTX or for your TEC 140. And the word is that it helps to correct for the blues a bit better in the 140. So you might just get a little bit better of a scope, or a little bit tighter of a star with this particular reducer.
Adam, can I comment on that real quick?
Go right ahead, Josh.
It's telecompressor corrector, by the way.
Gotcha.
So I was one of the people who shot with the Tech 140 and those Sony cameras, and I love the telescope. I also shot with my 8300 camera, and it was just it's an awesome telescope, lots of aperture for refractor, and very, very sharp. But and there was no sense of non-sharpness with the 8300. But definitely, as soon as I went to the Sony sensor, I could see some bloating in the blue channel. I'm not sure if that would be true for all the Sony sensors, or it's only the smaller pixel ones, but not only did I have a little bloating in the blue channel, the lume channel could never actually come to a real crisp focus either. So this is pretty exciting and something to definitely be trying out, hopefully this year. Also mentioned that supposedly Tech 140's new their new run of flatteners is also supposed to help correct in the blue, and there've been some buzz on the Yahoo group about that, but have yet to be able to see if that's true or not. But my dad did get one, so we'll be able to test if that's true as well or not.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, basically, wow, these things get the 130 down to f4.5 and the 140 down to, and the TEC 140 down to f5. So you've got a nice premium fast refractor, a pretty big refractor too. Well, for f5 it is. Innovations Foresight. Now this had been introduced previously. I believe they have a new size out now. The larger size had been introduced more recently, but it's gotten a new buzz. First of all, because we had Gaston on a couple weeks ago, but also because our very own Mike Miller picked one up and is experimenting with it, and seems to be very happy with it. And this is one of those aha products. The on-axis guider with focus lock. And I had to put the focus lock in there because I think the focus lock thing is really cool. But like I said, available in different sensor size. Basically, you guide in the center of your imaging field. There is a dichroic beam splitter inside of this thing, which sends your imaging light up to your camera and splits off the infrared and sends that to your guide camera. So you can guide on the center of your field. In addition, it also gives you access to more of the field for your guide scars with an XY adjustment. If you basically, I don't know if you had field rotation or if you're using an off-axis guider, you probably at this point know why you would want to do that and why it's such a benefit. But then there's a few other benefits that come along with this. The dichroic beam splitter splits the guide light off, and you're only getting the infrared light, so there may be some seeing benefits to only guiding in the infrared light. In addition, if you have a good focuser, you can actually focus mid-exposure. Now, for some people with premium optics, that might not matter so much. But for some people, well, I guess if you have an SCT and you're taking hour-long exposures, or you want to take hour-long exposures, but your thermal limit is about 30 minutes, well, you may have a solution. Like I said, good focuser. So you're going to have something hanging off the back of this thing, but really a lot of good features and benefits to this. And I'm sure we're going to get a further review on this. In fact, I reshared Mike's quick video, but we're going to get a nice description of this from Mike in the near future. SX Ultrastar, premium guide camera. Actually, premium guide camera, but also good for live viewing. It's just good enough that it's one of those cameras that if you do want to attempt to do some live viewing, you're going to see something on the computer screen. Each year they keep on coming out with new ones. What was it last year? I can't even keep them straight. I have the Lodestar, so it was Lodestar, Superstar, Lodestar 2, Ultrastar, and we'll see what comes in the future. The Lacerta M Gen 2. This is a standalone auto guider, and it's version 2, and the reports are that this one works, and it really works well. So if you've got one of those Nikon cameras and you're afraid to bring your laptop out, you just want to hook it up and go, this might be one of your best options. Sony ICX279 chip, which is a very sensitive sensor, so I believe that this could work with an off-axis guider. Built-in hand control, which gives you immediate feedback. It actually shows you your stars on the screen. And dithering support, so you don't have to give up much to go standalone. And this is a very exciting product. The Qhy Pole Master. This is an electronic polar scope which gives you fast and accurate alignment, and it's compatible with a bunch of different mounts. Basically, you can put this where your polar scope goes, or I believe you can somehow attach it. If you don't have a place to put a polar scope, you can somehow attach it to your RA axis. And it just looks at the northern sky and determines the center of the field of rotation, and then tells you where you have to move your mount to. I'm just looking at that. I have PhD there, but I don't think that's the screen I intended to put there.
That probably is, Adam. That's showing the drift alignment from their advertisement. So it's just you can see the RA and the deck on there.
Okay. Yeah, I thought there was another screen where it showed you something else. I think this did come from their website, but I think there was another screen I had intended to show. But either way, basically, first reports on the forum are it seems to work as it's advertised, and basically, if it works as it's advertised, this thing's going to make a lot of people happy.
Yeah, I had my first run at it 2 nights ago.
Oh, you have one?
Yeah, and it probably took me about 2 minutes, and once I was done, I did it both ways. I attached it to my Atlas, and then I just mounted it on the dovetail just to see if I could do it both ways. Both ways worked great, and then just looking at the Hd25 report afterwards, both times I was under a minute of error. So like I said, I'm particularly excited for the other mount that I have, the M0, but also, you know, it could be very helpful for for a lot of situations. But it just pretty intuitive and pretty easy to use.
Adam, I don't know if you're monitoring as you speak there. It's hard to monitor the comment sections and stuff.
I haven't been.
Okay. Dylan points out that the Qhy Pole Master has no southern hemisphere support yet, or if you're real close to the equator on either side, north or south of the equator. And he's explaining also that the PhD graph is probably just the resultant periodic error correction. And that's about all there is down there. So it's just, yeah, that's what we got over there.
Okay, thank you for that, Dylan. Josh, maybe I could ask you then. There's an additional program along with PhD that you use, correct?
Yeah, there's QHY has a software package available. You can, even if you don't own the camera, you can go to QHY and download it to see what it is and how it works. The support for what Dylan is talking about, I'm not sure about the Southern Hemisphere, but I think maybe they said yes to that also. But the low latitude support to offset the diffraction from the atmosphere is supposed to be available. I think in April it was.
When you said did you say that they're trying to develop the Southern Hemisphere support?
To be honest, I just can't remember for sure. I thought I read that. I know that they are definitely developing support for diffraction. I think that they said at the same time that they are working on the Southern Hemisphere, and I will look that up real quick while we're on tonight to confirm that one way or another.
They didn't just say turn it upside down.
Get on a plane and fly north. Yeah, this is one of those really cool products because I don't know, beginners struggle with polar alignment, and then we struggle with polar alignment. Everyone struggles with polar alignment because it's just not fun and you have to do it every time. And this is why I didn't want to say much more about that D810A. Backyard Nikon, it's here. Nikon camera control and automation. When I say automation, there's limited automation, but with Astro Tortilla, you get plate solving and dithering and a few other features. And it has the same UI as Backyard EOS. So if you're coming from a Canon and you want to move over to a Nikon, you've got a familiar user interface. This is a great program, well supported. We've had Ghislaine on, and he went over Backyard EOS, so you could probably check out that video, and maybe we'll have him come on to explain Backyard Nikon at some point in the future. And very recently we had on the Prism all-in-one software, and Prism is new to the US, or new to, I should say, this half of the world. Full automation control, roof motors, focuser, mount, CCD, planetarium software, many advanced features. And for this one, I'm going to again say, check out the video because it really did too much to even try and explain. I think it was just a few weeks back. And Deep Skies West, a new and affordable remote imaging solution. They're not just another remote imaging site. They offer all sorts of plans based on your budget. If you don't have equipment but you want to get yourself to dark skies, well, you've got an option. And basically they've got them. Clear dark skies, lots of clear dark skies. Again, and I hate to defer, but check out our video on these guys because you'll be impressed. Lots of options, and you won't be depressed like me in the cloudy Pennsylvania skies. Last but not least, the Baader high-speed filters. So if you've got yourself a Raza, Officine Stellar, trying to think, what are these fast scopes? Well, narrowband filters optimized for fast telescopes. These work down to f2. So whereas the Astrodons are spec'd to work down to, I believe, is it f3.8 or something like that, and then you have some fall off or loss of efficiency. These operate faster, and they have sets, or they have H Alpha 03 S2, so you can pretty much pick up whichever one you want, and they are available now. And that is it for our imaging products of 2015. I'm going to pop back out and get out of this crazy screen. I see some comments, and I'm just going to see. Yeah, Dylan, Australia Skywatcher. Sorry, just going through the comments here. I'm going to check out the Q&A first, make sure there's nothing in there. I see nothing in Q&A. Oh no, they popped in. Bill Clugston, they are all owned by Cinta. Yeah, I knew they're owned by Cinta. I just didn't quite know. If you don't use two scopes, okay. Wes is asking, if you don't use two scopes, do you need a weight or something on the other side to balance the mount? And let me think. That's probably in regards to the Avalon, I would have to assume.
Yes, I do need a counterbalance, and that's what we're working on for mine. But if you do not use a short refractor, you can actually move the whole arm down so that you need at most a 1 or 2 kilogram weight. It's especially well made for like SCTs and short RCs, so that you don't necessarily need counterweights.
Thank you, Josh. Wes is
and
go ahead.
And to follow up on the QHY, the current software version has not implemented atmospheric correction and precession of the Earth's rotational axis. The current version is suitable for use from November 2015 until June of 2016. Recommended to use at areas with latitude higher than 30 degrees north. Support for the above-mentioned corrections will be implemented in future software update. Support for Southern Hemisphere is also under development, and I posted a link there for that as well.
Thanks, Josh.
Awesome.
You.
Yeah, this that's another one that we're gonna have to get a session on or a review of, just because that's a really cool thing. And maybe okay, so are they saying, hold on, current version is suitable? Okay, so they're not saying when they're gonna. I thought they were saying when they were gonna update it, but no, they're not. Oh well. So that's it. Imaging Products of the Year 2015. Lots of good stuff. I hope next year we have lots of other cool stuff to talk about. But getting back to other stuff, I just want to say next week we are going to be off. We're going to take off that week between Christmas and New Year's. So have a happy holidays. And I will post at some time in the future the next session, whatever the topic will be. So, if there isn't anything else going on, I'm going to thank you one more time.
Adam, I just saw one other thing pop up on the Q&A.
Thank you. Now's your last chance. Oh, I see a few things pop up. Okay. IDAS LPS D1 filter for Canon APS-C. Is it good for non-modified DSLRs? Will the color balance be off? IDAS LPS D1. I don't know specifically about the D1. I know they each have different characteristics.
I could probably speak to that.
Do you know the D1?
Well, I looked into them pretty extensively when I was buying them myself. I ended up buying a P2 myself for my DSLR, which is unmodified. The difference between them is just the width of the red band pass, and it's a good deal narrower with the D1. My concern was that with such a narrow bandpass in the red, and it was like very narrow, just barely around the HA and S2. I don't think it even got all of S2. That my red channel was going to lag too much. It already lags a good deal with the P2. So if you have an unmodded camera, I would recommend sticking with the P2 instead of the D1, because you'll probably have a good deal of noise problems with the red channel once you equalize all three of the channels.
Thank you, John. Yeah. So yeah, unmodified camera and a narrow filter in the reds is going to mean you're not getting much. So probably look at a different filter. Look at one with a little bit different characteristic. Brandon Walsh is asking, the Avalon had a long lever arm. how rigid is the axis to prevent flexure, especially at only 16 pounds? I think that's, that's a question I have, because it does look unique.
There is no issue to me with the rigidity of that arm. The only concern or issue I've had to this point is that the whole mount is so light that you have to be careful not to touch it. I don't know, just for example, the Atlas is, I think my whole setup probably weighs 100 pounds with the Atlas, so you could accidentally bump into it and you'd probably still be alright. Or if you want to plug, I don't know, maybe you're trying to move stuff around on your dovetail, you probably wouldn't have an issue. On the M0, if I'm trying to move anything on the mount or on the scope or the camera or the mount after it's polar aligned, I would question whether or not I bump the polar alignment out, even if I was just looking at it funny.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm going to go do one more round. No more questions.
But by the way, Adam, another product that did not make it into it from Avalon is their Merlino, which is their observatory, and they aren't selling. I don't know if they're selling them publicly or they're just doing custom installations, but they are the first ones I know that have a motorized polar alignment, and they do that using Hd25. So they retrofitted, I think it was their T-Pod to do that.
Okay, yeah, there were a few that didn't make it. I almost had a runner-ups, but I decided to not to, just for the sake of keeping it on time. But we'll probably have a few of those products on, or the manufacturers on, to represent them anyway. So, again, thank you all for coming. That's it for 2015. We'll see you early on in 2016. Thanks again.